I didn't have, I didn't have a link to all the other groups. So I went in and added that to all the pages, the cross-reference stuff, because I had, my new log wasn't pointing to anybody else, and the St. Louis Linux user group wasn't pointing to here, or to the main group, all kinds of stuff. Magic.
Magic.
Yes.
We have ignition. Apparently.
Don't point that thing at me.
Okay.
Phil got a good laugh out of that.
You can point it at me, really, but don't move the other one, please.
Oh, I found the other one wasn't recording, so I fixed it.
Oh, what'd you do? You broke it?
I had broken it, yes.
All this technology, it's too much technology for me. It's all magic. Go ahead, Gary. Say something. Dead area.
Dead area. Okay. Let's see. Got a couple more announcements about the calendar, but first, general Q&A. Anybody have anything that they just have a hankering to ask or announce or talk about or complain about?
Steve, you need that anymore?
Now,
Yeah,
go for the
I
calendar,
want to go for the calendar.
please.
That calendar's next.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if anybody is interested, I could give a little presentation on it's cryptocurrency mining on a Raspberry Pi.
Whoa.
That could
Anybody's
be.
interested?
We don't care if people are interested or not. We need more presentations.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
I beg of you.
We'll get that.
What I can do is basically a show and tell type thing, I've got the screens and all that stuff, but it won't be a formal presentation.
We don't like formal presentations.
Okay.
That's too much work.
We have more fun with it. Just,
All right. It's the system that I have is a bathroom with a shell in it that gives you internet access to it, so you can go to it from any kind of. I can go to it from my phone.
It is nice to have between 5 and 10 slides to kind of direct the,
Yeah,
the
I could do
conversation. I have a tendency to do 112 slides, so it's a problem.
I could do some of the basics and give you some of the links to some of the.
That's all I can remember anyway.
Because there's about 100 different ways to mine cryptocurrency.
So someone should give this man's contact information.
we can track him down.
He's not left the room yet.
We can tackle him.
And he's near the back.
All right, excellent. Thank you. And as obviously the conversation went here, yeah, we're always looking for good topics. So both, if you're willing to present, we'd love to hear from you. And secondly, if it's just something that you would like to hear about, but either you don't want to ask somebody yourself who you think knows about it, or if you don't even know who to ask about it, we'll try and track somebody down. You can still give us the idea of what topics you'd like to hear, and we'll try and find somebody.
We have a lot of ideas, but all the chiefs are looking for Indians. It's a kind of a problem in having volunteers, and and we're old and crudge-mudgeons, and we kind of don't really let go of old stuff because we don't understand the new technology. So it's too much for me. It is.
Crutch budgets. Boy, gotta write that one down.
Of course, another good spot is the Disgust List, mailing list. Somebody posted just the other day, actually you reposted, Stan, but he had a motherboard that was giving some sort of error, and we haven't really come up with some good solutions for him, but I almost, if anybody has any ideas, you can read that, respond out there. My immediate response, and I haven't put it into writing yet, is he didn't really give us a lot of information as far as what type of error code or whatever, so it was really hard to diagnose. He just says it ain't working. It can't really follow up on
Well,
that.
it died.
Yeah. But how does it die? So,
Did you check if it was plugged in?
yeah.
Reinstall the software.
But anyway, it's a good place to go check on things. Speaking of checking on things, by the way, did anybody have any other general questions? General comments? Nobody wants to complain that it's hot.
Presentation still open?
Quick summary of some things out here. Let's see. Actually, it was Tuesday of this week. It was the 80th anniversary of McDonnell Aircraft being founded here in St. Louis. I know some of the folks in the room here have worked there in the past.
The day before is Boeing?
Yes. Completely different year.
20
Boeing was
years
incorporated in
before.
1916, and McDonnell was
23.
founded in 1939. So, but of course, McDonnell is now, as of 1997.
That's August 1st.
96.
Go look at the August 1st event.
So that's how you have to
August 1st event.
My
So
father
before you
worked,
leave this page, there should be some stuff about a.
Ah, okay. Yes, there it is. McDonnell Douglas absorbed into Boeing, merged into Boeing.
my father worked at McDonnell, and he said everybody that he knew that worked at Curtis Wright just moved over to McDonnell Douglas. McDonnell.
So that was when McDonnell Douglas was formed?
What went
Or,
McDonnell, yeah, not, whatever. The
whatever
names
it was.
are all confusing.
Well, there was a McDonald,
McDonnell,
there
and
was a
then
Douglas
then
aircraft
Douglas,
and a McDonnell Douglas aircraft.
McDonnell Douglas joined together, and then Boeing bought, it was McDonnell, and then they merged up with Boeing, or
No, Douglas.
with Douglas, and then Boeing ate them.
Well, when did Curtis join the family?
That was before
Yeah.
And they
McDonnell.
joined McDonald first?
I
Yeah,
don't,
they just went out of business,
Oh.
and as Curtis Wright shrank, McDonnell Aircraft was building up, and they just hired a lot of the employees.
I don't think it's in July and August, but the McDonnell Douglas merger was in 1968.
Okay. And by the way, before McDonnell founded McDonnell Aircraft, he had worked as an engineer for Don Douglas at Douglas Aircraft, and so there was a little bit of snickering and satisfaction when McDonnell bought Douglas in 1968.
the employee bought the company, yeah.
There's a bit of trivia there that there was a period of time back in the 70s, perhaps beyond that, where there was a Douglas aircraft and a McDonnell Douglas aircraft.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Before 1939, before McDonnell founded McDonnell Aircraft, he worked for Douglas Aircraft as an
Yeah,
engineer.
this would have been in the 70s.
Right, well, it continued to exist up
You're
until...
saying that the 1968 merger didn't do away with Douglas aircraft?
there was a different.
There was a Douglas aircraft in the Los Angeles area,
But
and McDonnell Douglas here in St. Louis.
Stanford is saying the merger date for Douglas becoming part of McDonnell Douglas was 1968.
Maybe they didn't buy a new sign yet, but
Okay.
but there were. I know my stepfather had.
Oh, yeah, no. Mech Air and Douglas Aircraft were part of the McDonnell Douglas Corporation.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it is a
Yeah.
signage issue.
Yeah, they each got to keep their signs, but yeah.
And I kind of see the Boeing acquisition as revenge for the DC-3.
Yes, yeah.
Because the 247 came out, and Douglas had this big poster of the 247 over where the engineers were drawing their stuff with the caption, "Like this, only better." And
Of course, for
apparently
many
there is an
years-
extant copy of the 247 now at the Boeing museum.
For many years, there was another company within the organization called Math Auto, McDonnell Automation, and they were really a major IT company that was based here in St. Louis and really had some influence worldwide.
They turned blue since then.
That's from about 1980 to about
Holding my breath.
1987 or 88.
Okay.
Yes. Well, if you go.
Then it was sold to IBM.
Mhm.
Right, that's how they turned blue.
Yes, sir.
Getting back to the topic here, I added Stan and Stephen and Craig Buchek on the YouTube channel. I had to find Stan's Gmail account, which wasn't fun.
Craig who?
Buchek.
So if you already have
Buchek?
a log on YouTube, you just use your.
I added your YouTube account, yeah. And then in the top right corner, all you do is you click on it, and it says switch account, and you can choose a different account.
How many Steves do we have here tonight?
Steve's?
Stephen, yeah. Would anybody else,
Only
I was
three?
actually in the calendar, would anyone else like to help with the calendar? I by deleting things instead of just?
I delete stuff all the time. Gary puts stuff in I don't like, I delete it.
That's a never pastime.
All we have to do is just disable Gary's account.
Well, he might notice that.
And turn it back on.
All right. Let's see. Other things out there. It's actually in Chicago.
Gary?
Yes, sir.
I wasn't actually finished though. Is anyone interested in working on the calendar who is not already an editor of the calendar? Because it takes clicky and it's done.
The Google Calendar is by far the best calendar I've ever run across as far as maintenance.
I'm just asking. And-
Easy.
Yeah.
If you got something on Tuesday, you want to make it on Wednesday, you just click and drag it. Does it?
If you're still in there, you can add me as a YouTube admin, but I'll give you the address later.
I have your Gmail account right here.
Oh, okay.
What's that robotics competition on the 30th?
Let's see. It's not actually a competition. The word mentors, you can't really see it, but there's actually a group that recently formed, basically of mentors who want to organize a first robotics team and basically just be helpful mentors to people. So I believe that's their first meeting. The Advanced Research Computing Seminar, colloquium, whatever, is meeting in Chicago. That last week they met here in St. Louis in 2016, I think it was. It was a very good conference. Chicago isn't that far away. And August 2nd and 3rd, and Sunday. So 2nd, 3rd, and 4th is the Missouri sales tax holiday. So if you're looking to buy, invest a lot of money in some good computing equipment, if you wait until those days, it's sales tax free.
Depending.
Buy you a crane.
Depending on the locality.
Oh, okay. Stan is pointing out that, yes, it may depend on the locality you're buying. The state of Missouri won't collect tax. It's up to the local city and county whether they're collecting tax on that day. So you have to check the local. So anything else that we should be pointing out?
Well,
You?
I'd like to back
Oh,
up
yes, sir.
and make a suggestion you said for topics.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody can say anything about Samba, I'm interested.
Okay. All right.
Henry, that's a very broad topic. Do you have
Yeah.
something more specific?
Installing it as a file and print server on your land.
I can tell you everything I know in about a half hour.
Okay.
You probably
Next
don't
month it
want to use
is.
Samba for print server unless you're just Windows. You're better off with,
Cups.
what's the living for?
Cups.
Cups. You're better off with cups.
Okay, that's the stuff I need to know.
All right. Sanford.
Since I never read the calendar, when did I miss the fact that we're no longer tracking the pearl mongers?
The Pearlmonger group hasn't met for probably 6-8 months.
Or not 6-8 years, but just 6 or 8 months. I'm only
Yeah.
6 or 8 months behind.
Yeah, you're only 6 or 8 months behind.
That was longer than
The
that.
primary reason for that is for the last probably 2 years, the only presenter had been Stephen Lembark, and Stephen has moved to Mississippi, I believe it is.
Or
And
Louisiana,
although
someplace
he-
down south.
Yeah, somewhere down south. And he used to occasionally, business would bring him to St. Louis, and so for a while he would be back in town the week that he was doing the Pearl Mongers meeting. But as he didn't get back into town, it's not formally dissolved. It's just, without him to do the presentation, there's no purpose in scheduling it.
Well, all the rest, everything else is listed as hiatus.
Mhm.
Everybody's on hiatus this summer except us.
That's a good point. So.
Because we rock.
Well, that explains.
But if you can find a good venue for the Pearlmongers and get somebody to present, we'll be happy to start it up again.
Yeah, that's the way Steve's left the webpage, is he always puts out there every month, if somebody would like to present or find us a meeting space.
Finding a meeting space is first priority. Presenting is
In
secondary.
his mind.
Well, without
Preferably
a
with beer.
venue, it's hard to do a
Preferably with
presentation.
beer, right?
Period, yes.
Beer is good.
Anyway, we've got enough trouble running this group. Let's see. Anything else? Hearing none. I turn it over to Ken Johnson, who has been one of our speakers in the past, and everybody always is very informed after Ken gets done telling us how it all works. And tonight he's going to talk to us about network packet analysis, and he's going to be demonstrating Wireshark. So I'm turning it over to Ken. Oh, and I should have said Ken runs a small software, computer consulting company. So talk to him about the consulting.
So, if I could have a show of hands, how many of you use network capture and packet capture and analysis to solve problems on a regular basis? Okay, thank you. I was expecting that. Let's see here. So the first part Gary already said, and I've been using network packet capture and analysis for problem solving since 1979. Those of you with a keen sense of history and dates may have some questions about that, but it will be explained shortly. So we're going to go over a little history which relates to this topic, and then I'm going to talk about capturing packets because you can't analyze them until you've got them. And then we'll look a little bit about analyzing captured packets and what some of the issues are there. So in 1979, there was networking using serial point-to-point connections. It was thrilling. We had 9,600 baud network connections. But in 1980, Digital, Intel, and Xerox released the Internet specification. 3 years later, Ethernet products were becoming reasonably widespread. A little later in that decade, we saw some early Ethernet capture tools. In 1998, the first release of Ethereal came out, which was later name changed to Wireshark. And in 2005, the 802.1q VLAN tagging spec came out, which is relevant to trying to do this kind of work. And so we'll talk about that just enough to kind of deal with that issue. So in 1979, people were using the maintenance operations protocol and the digital data communications message protocol, which provided reliable ordered delivery of messages. Note that that's messages, not bytes. MOP, basically, think boot P and DHCP. I was using this, I was involved in a project that was using these protocols to implement a distributed laboratory data acquisition and control system. It had 2 semi-redundant hosts and 3 remote data concentrating systems which fed data back to the hosts using these serial connections. And the way that we would check on what was happening on those serial connections was that we had a Hewlett-Packard 1640B available to us. And it looked like this. And it could decode DDCMP and MOP. And that was kind of, well, to some.
Those are breakout boards on top there?
You know, somebody had already set that bit when I joined the project, and I just never touched it. I learned how to use it to look at the traffic, but that was as far as it went. I mean, its packet formatting skills were kind of minimal, but it had enough to help. Circa 1988-89, Ethernet is 8 years old. 10base2, the thin wire coax, was becoming economically practical for small business. Network General releases their sniffer out at Lawrence Berkeley Labs. TCP dump is released. And Meridian Technology Corporation, where I was working at the time, wrote their own little network capture and analysis program called Landmon. And so after kind of a break, I was back in the packet capture and analysis business.
LBL was who?
Lawrence Berkeley Labs. So in 1998, we get the beginnings of Wireshark. In 2004, it went from Ethereal to Wireshark. There was some issues with the ownership of the name. The project forked, and very successful since then. In 2005, the 802.1q VLAN tagging spec was introduced. That allowed for the use of a 32-bit field between the Ethernet addresses and the Ethernet protocol type. And this usually gets used on trunk connections where you want to have several different VLANs traveling over the same Ethernet cable. I'm going to regard the 802.1ad double tagging as out of scope for this presentation. It turns out that depending upon which Ethernet device driver you have and which Ethernet device you have, there may be support for easily recognizing this and there may not. So there are some tricks that you can do to deal with that for the purpose of packet capture.
The 802 dot protocol, is that strictly the wireless stuff?
No.
No? Okay.
Not at all. There are some of those things that do refer to wireless, but neither of these things are wireless.
Okay.
So, here's 4 approaches to packet capture. One of them is that you're able to do packet capture on one of the 2 devices that you're actually interested in. I mean, the case that we're going to talk about is you've got something here and you've got something here, and they are or they're supposed to be communicating with each other over an Ethernet network, and you want to look at the packets that are going back and forth because there's some kind of problem. That's what we're talking about here. But in order to look at those packets, you've got to capture them. And an easy way to do it is if you have access to those devices, and if at least one of them lets you do packet capture on that device. So that's the same device. That's the simplest case. Note that you don't necessarily need to have a device that will let you run, or where it's convenient to run Wireshark, which you might want to use as your analysis tool. Wireshark can open the capture files for many other tools, including TCP-dump. There is, well, we have slides to talk about this. There's TCP-dump, there's T-Shark, or any of the other Wireshark compatible tools, and there's a fairly long list. So that's the easiest way to get the packets. If one of the devices you're interested in will let you capture them. The next one,
What do you mean?
Go ahead, Sam.
What do you mean by let you capture them?
Well, all right. There are a couple of situations. For example, it might be that you're interested in the communications between a router and a device where you don't have that kind of access, like a voice over IP phone. All right? So you want to look at the traffic between these 2 items, but neither one of them has the capability, or has the exposed capability for you to do packet capture. So you're still interested in that traffic, but neither of those two devices will let you do packet capture.
Does it have to have some kind of physical connection, or is it some kind of process that has to be going on, or what?
Let's see, I'm probably making this.
Just explain hub versus switch.
We'll get to that in a minute. I think this may be a more basic question. I'm not sure. So, do you have any voice over IP phones?
No.
Have you ever used one?
No.
Okay. Using your imagination, you'll imagine a telephone which has a little Linux computer hidden inside and an Ethernet cable out the back. And over that Ethernet cable, it connects off to a voice over IP server which has a connection into the switched telephone network. So if you pick up that handset and dial, that phone talks using TCP/IP to that switch, And it does the right thing to talk to the telephone network, to the POTS network.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical connection that you tag into.
You have to be able to tap into the Ethernet or
Well,
wireless.
well, let's put it this way. I'm not going to discuss the wireless case. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I'm sure that there are approaches for that, but I always work with it once it gets onto a wire. All right, so port mirroring. Port mirroring is what happens if you have an Ethernet switch, which will let you duplicate the packets received and sent on port 1 over on port 2. This is a capability which is in any managed switch that's worth having. There are also a few routers that will let you do that. I mentioned the RV320 from Cisco, not because I'm trying necessarily to recommend that product, but this gives you an idea for the price point at which you might start to see this function. It's one I happen to be familiar with, that's all. So ideally what you're going to do is you're going to prepare in advance for the fact that you want to be able to have this capability. So you will have managed switches which have this capability to do port mirroring, and every connection in your organization or in this office where you're trying to do this or whatever it is will be via a managed switch. So you won't have a connection, say, from your router to your modem. You'll have a connection from the router to the switch and from the switch to the modem. And if you ever need to monitor that traffic, you just pick one of those ports and mirror it, and there you go. We'll have some pictures. And then finally, what you'd like to have is you'd like to have an extra line that runs, or that can run from the mirror port to your desk. I find that very convenient. Another way to approach this is device insertion. So there's an existing network, there's something that you want to monitor, and so what you do is you open the connection that goes to that device, you stick it into something, and then stick a wire from that something into the device you want to monitor, and then that something lets you see those packets. The old school approach would be with a 10 megabit hub, where in the old 10 megabit hubs, every port saw everything. There's some difficulties with that approach. It's pretty slow. You may find it difficult to find a 10 megabit hub. I may still have one around somewhere, but I don't use it anymore.
If you do, it's probably coax.
Phil's probably got a box of them.
Oh, well.
Only 3 or 4.
I have one or two.
So, I mean, you can go that way, but it may or may not be what you need to do. There are some purpose-made Ethernet taps which you can find, and they're expensive, like $200 expensive, easily.
So the switch is cheaper than the tap.
We're going to get to that one.
well.
Yes. Or you might get a small managed switch, or two. Here's one. I paid less than $40 for it. The last time I looked, it was less than $30 on sale.
What is it, Netgear?
That is a Netgear GS305B. Pardon?
That's the model number?
That is the one I have. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best one you can find, or that it's the only one you can find. I happen to have some successful experience using some low-end Netgear managed switches, so I thought it was reasonable to believe that this would work for my purposes, and it was inexpensive, so I got it. I didn't do a comprehensive search.
What's the speed on that model?
It's a gigabit switch
Well, that's respectable.
for $40.
It's better than 10 megabit.
Ethernet Smart Managed Switch Plus, $24.99.
Yeah, but the problem is you have to have the managed switch for every port you want to look at the traffic.
Well,
No,
what we're talking about here is we're assuming that you're doing device insertion.
Okay.
Now, the previous slide was when we talked about you have everything connected to a managed switch. That's the way you want to live, frankly. If you can afford it, that's the way you want to live. But if that's not possible in the situation where you find yourself, that's what I would do.
And you don't actually need it on every device, it just needs to be somewhere that the traffic will go through it.
So here's the setup. My assumption here for this kind of device insertion approach is that you started out with what you see at the top there. System A has essentially a cable connecting you to System B. There may be several switches or whatever in between, but essentially there's that direct connection. In order to do this monitoring, this packet capture, we're going to replace the picture on the top with the picture on the bottom. System A still connects to switches to System B. There's a port which is set up so that you can do administration on the switch. And there's a port which is set up to mirror one of the top two ports. So when you want to collect those packets, you connect a computer running Wireshark probably to the mirror port and collect away. Are people with me so far?
So you'd have to be in the, you have to be in the room where this.
You need to be in the room with something.
That's why it's called device insertion. You
Yeah,
unplug the cable
you
to
need
System A.
You need to be somewhere in there. I mean, this is effectively the, like I said, that might be several cables, several switches, but you need to get to somewhere in there.
But you have physical access to that, to the wiring.
You gotta get there somehow.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
And a lot of the times, the mirroring option is going to be per port, so you might only get to hear and see what System A is talking about.
Okay.
You might not see traffic from System B,
So it might be half the
unless
device.
you're tapping onto a VLAN or another.
right. Well, I mean, my assumption is that, you know, if these are actually talking through the switch, then, you know, one of these ports is generally enough. There are probably some special cases where that's not true. But in the general case, the basic case, start with this.
Okay, so if you're interested in what System A is doing, on that mirror port, you'll get his send and receive.
Yes. I mean, all right.
A lot of it may have come from System B, but a lot of System B stuff may be going elsewhere.
Right.
But
But,
you could look at-
but the assumption here, again, there are more complicated cases. What we're trying to do here is talk about the simple case where, you know, you've got this one, and you've got this one, and something is supposed to be happening between them, and it's not working. We can find more complicated cases to look at, but if you can't do that one, you're never going to get the complicated cases to work. So, generally, for your basic situation, this approach is going to work. If it won't, you know, then you would go on from there. Now, why would you want to have two switches? If you're in a situation where the place where you have access is to a trunk connection, where it's actually running several different VLANs, tagged VLANs, on the same connection, then if you've got two switches, you can play this little trick. Let's assume the way you're interested in is on VLAN 27. It comes into this switch tag. The other tag stuff you send out up here. But 27 you assign here is untagged, and you do the same on this switch, and then send it out here again tagged. This you can send there. And now the computer that you're hooking up here doesn't need to know how to talk to tagged zagged Ethernet. So that's why you might want to have two of these cheap little switches, because you're needing to deal with that kind of situation. The other advantage of dealing with that is that this other traffic, which you know for sure you don't care about on the other two VLANs, you're not going to see it here, because you're only looking at VLAN 27. This is a point where I think I need to stop again and ask if there are questions. Remember I talked about, hey, I have a whiteboard. Dang it. Can I use the whiteboard?
Yeah.
$5.
Do you find a marker?
Well, let's see how what we like today.
Oh, good.
So your ordinary Ethernet packet has 6 bytes of to address, 6 bytes of from address, and those are the MAC addresses. And then 2 bytes of protocol type. That's what the original digital Intel Xerox Ethernet spec looked like. And that's typical for IP traffic that you see on your local network. The 802.1q thing inserts 32 bits here of VLAN stuff, of which you can have up to what, 4096?
Yeah, 4096 and then some reserves.
And there's some other stuff.
4095, 0 to 4095.
Whatever. So 4090 something in here, and then here's your protocol type and so forth. So what that effectively means is that on that same wire, it's as though you had several different networks which do not see each other. Now, we're not going to get into sort of the fine points of whether it's really possible to see each other or not if you have the right equipment and the right privileges. But effectively, you can have several different networks running on the same wire, and they don't see each other. But as I mentioned, the device drivers, depending upon the device, the Ethernet interface you have, and what driver is available for it, for your system where you're trying to do the monitoring, it may not deal well with these. Plus, there's the fact that that other stuff, the 7 VLAN and the 12 VLAN, you're not interested in anyway. You're only interested in 27.
Yeah.
So that's why you have this approach.
There is an easy, if you have an available port on one switch, there's an easy way to do it with one switch. You just set a spare port on that switch to 27 on tag, for example, on that one switch, and then you just mirror that.
For the purposes of this, if he wants to be man in the middle.
You still only need one extra switch, though.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
The switch only has what, four ports or something?
Well, it has 5, but it's not clear to me if
You can VLAN access to VLAN 1, so map 27 to 1,
Or
and
just
port
one.
out.
yeah, but will the switch actually send the packets there because it doesn't think that device is there?
Yes. Yeah. Most of them don't need
No,
a
what
link.
Ken said is actually correct, because the MAC mapping won't see the path to there.
But if you're mirroring,
But if he's mirroring the VLAN that's virtualized inside,
Yeah.
he can see the packets. But if he's doing port access, it won't see the packets because of MAC address.
It's the MAC address filtering. Switches only send packets where they need to go on the basis of the MAC address. Really?
no. Yeah, okay, don't worry about it.
All right, so that's 2 switches. Let's see. You may have noticed that I skipped right over ARP spoofing. which was in my list, and I don't have anything further to say about that. Unfortunately, I didn't get that far, so I'm not going to be able to talk about that. But I will point out a couple of things. It's only going to work with IP traffic. Okay? The idea of ARP spoofing is that you have a man in the middle and he lies to each end about the physical addresses associated with the IP addresses that you're interested in monitoring. But if you're not monitoring IP traffic, you're out of luck. Now, most of the traffic you're probably interested in is IP traffic. But if the problem that you're trying to solve is actually happening at a lower layer, like suppose there's some kind of problem with ARP, ARP spoofing won't help. All right. So, we've talked about how you can capture the packets. Let's talk about packet analysis. My recommendation would be that you use Wireshark. Wireshark has an enormous capability to do packet formatting and some amount of capability to point things out to you that it thinks are out of the ordinary. The amount of grunt work that it will save you compared to what we were doing back in 1988 is staggering. Get it from your distribution package. If you've got Debian, get it from the package. If you've got Mint, get it from the package. Just, aptitude install Wireshark or whatever the appropriate command line is for the particular distribution you're using. One exception to that is that when you're looking at a problem so straightforward that just using TCP dump in its default mode of a one-line summary per packet is enough to solve the problem. If that will do it, that's fine. Otherwise, use Wireshark. Unfortunately, there is no free lunch. You do need some amount of knowledge about, you've captured the packets, you're looking at them, you're going to need some amount of knowledge about what to expect. Sometimes after you get it, you then realize, oh, so this is what's happening, but I don't have enough background to immediately say, oh, and this is the problem. I have to go do research. We're going to look at an example tonight where that's true for me. There's a bunch of stuff going on, and I'm going to have to do some more research to figure it out. Wireshark does the grunt work, and some problems are easy once you apply this tool to them if you haven't been using this tool before. It makes some problems really easy. So, let's look at some examples. Let's see here. Get it going and then put it up there. So, it'll take me a minute or two All right, so
Do we need to turn lights on, folks?
on the left, we've got a system where I'm running Wireshark.
Say again?
I'm good.
You okay?
Behind me.
I'm running Wireshark over here. On this system in the middle, I'm trying to ping this system over on the right. And that's not working. We see these ping requests, but there's no answer coming back. And you'll note the Wireshark, being its helpful little self, says, no response found. No, I don't see an answer to this ping request. What's going on? Okay, so this one's sending pings, this one's not answering. There are a lot of different things that cause that problem, but we do at least know now that, okay, well, there's a packet going over and there's no packet coming back. So, scroll back through here. Here's something interesting. It's an ARP request. So that's the protocol that IP uses to convert IP addresses to MAC addresses. And our sender, that's number 20 here, is asking, hey, who's number 10? And it's getting an answer back. So now we know that that connection is good. You know, there is a continuous connection between this system and this system because we see an ARP request going out and no ARP request is coming back. But ping requests are going out and there's no ping requests coming back. Well, why is that? Well, it turns out that that's because this is a Windows 10 system running in default configuration.
Oh, no.
And it doesn't reply to ARP or to ping requests. So, now, you know, you can't know that just by looking at this. You can know what's happening. You know that, in other words, if we have a cable connection, you know, the IP addresses, you know, that part's working, but there's no ping response. But once you know that, you might go and look up, oh, Windows 10 ping responder. You know, typing that into Google or your favorite search engine, and then you would learn, oh, the default setting is that it's not enabled.
Yeah, you might want to mention that a lot of ISPs now are blocking ICMP. Because Charter just redid their network about 2 weeks ago, got a new IP address, and you can no longer ping the public IP.
Well, that's not very nice. If you're working within your own network,
Yeah, it's not a problem, but I
it
mean,
may still apply, yeah.
right, if you're trying to go work with somebody outside, you may not see it.
So given what we know so far, we could try something else.
Ken,
Yes.
would one of the steps be unplug the cable from your destination and plug something that you know would properly respond, and that would tell you that the problem is with the other box?
Well, that might be an approach you would take. You would take if you didn't have this tool available.
Right. I mean,
Well, it's also the case that sometimes you don't, sometimes your ability to insert new stuff is somewhat limited.
right.
So what I did here is I tried sending a ping from in the other direction, from the Windows box over to this Linux Mint system. And it worked. Requests go over, the replies come back. For requests go over, the replies come back. We're good. So that's, additional confirmation that, yeah, we're working, up through the IP stack is working. It's just that this thing doesn't do ping response. So this is just a really simple case of using this kind of technology to see what's going on and using the additional information that it gives you to solve a real problem. So now, we're going to look at a problem that I've been faced with. There we go. It's fairly short. It's, just a few packets, really. What's happening here is that system 10.30. Whatever is trying to send some email to 104.3. Whatever. Well, that's not quite correct. It's trying to submit an email to an email server for delivery. It wants that server to then deliver it where it needs to go. This server is willing to do, TLS encryption. So that process starts. There's a key exchange. We get down to here, and it says, fatal, unexpected message. Boom. So this is a message from the mail server to the system that's submitting the message. And so that might make us think to start with that, well, the server was unhappy because it said, hey, unexpected message, we're done. And this gives us an example of one of those cases where you need to have a little bit of knowledge, not necessarily huge knowledge, about what's going on and what kind of things to look for in order to figure out what's happening. And you can see that when you look at the previous message, which is a message from the submitter to the email server. And this message has the fin flag set, which means it's saying, I want to close this TCP connection from my end. That's what the server is not expecting. This is not the right time in this transaction for that to happen. So now we need to go back and figure out why did the program, why did the system that was doing this submission, why was it unhappy? So to do that, we can look at some of these packets in more detail. Let's start here. Huh. I need two adjustments. Because I think what's happening is that I'm not quite seeing everything. Because my computer has a different idea about what the size of the display is than the screen.
It's down there, Ken, you just need to grab it. See it? Up a little bit, up a little bit.
No, we're okay, yeah, we're all right. Okay, so if we come down here, you can kind of see this. So this is the highlighted packet, and this information is Wireshark's formatted explanation of what we're seeing in this packet. So it says, hey, this is Ethernet. The source address is a Cisco MAC address. The destination address is a Dell MAC address. And so this is coming like from a router to the submitting system. It's IP version 4. Here's the source and destination IP addresses. It's using TCP, so we've got a source port, 587, a destination port, the sequence number, and the acknowledgement number. Those are byte numbers. And then down here we have information from the secure sockets layer. Which it breaks out for us. Well,
Can you open the certificate for the bottom?
sure. And this gives you a feeling for,
Keep it real for quite a while.
yeah, you can keep drilling and Wireshark will
Keep telling.
yep. If we go back one packet, we can see the client hello. So here are the cipher suites that the client is offering to use. You know, it's trying to negotiate an encrypted connection. Here are the cipher suites that it's offering to use. It ends up picking the server ends up picking one of these. If you're trying to understand what's going on here, one of the things you might want to do is say, oh, well, what are the cipher suites that are available on my server? And how much overlap is there? It picked one of these. Was that the only one that was available, or were there others? And so it turns out that you can use, you can basically use, some script foo and the OpenSSL command to go off and find out exactly what ciphers your server will offer, except it turns out that the OpenSSL cipher suite names are not the same names as these. So then you need to go find a lookup table between the two. This is what I mean about more research can be required. But we know a lot more than we did when it was just my program tried to send an email, to submit an email to the server, and it didn't work. Well, we know it didn't work because it was in the process of doing the cipher, negotiation. It had gotten to the point where the server had picked a cipher, and then the client decided, nope, we're done. That might not seem like a huge advance, but it's further along than we were before, and I have some idea about where I need to go look to do further research. So there are a couple points to get out of this. Some problems are hard, especially if you're not already an expert in the particular specialized subject field at hand. I'm not an expert in TLS and its cipher suites. Wireshark does the grunt work, for the most part. It's got this nice, pretty list of all the cipher suites that are being offered by the client, and their hex identifier and their names. Now, the fact that the software I have available to me on my server doesn't use the same set of names, arguably that's my problem. And there are translations available. It's just kind of a bit of a messy thing. You've got to get these and get those and sort them and pick them out. But it does demonstrate the pretty amazing capability that Wireshark has to do the grunt work, to format all this stuff so you can see it, and then you have to take it from there. Other questions about this? I haven't solved this problem yet, so I can't really tell you. This is a real problem that I
So you want us to give you the answer?
Sure.
There's too many offers. Some software won't accept too many cipher suites.
So you think that
It's one problem that I've run into.
you think that 9 might be too many?
Some software, yeah. It's just a knee jerk, but also you're getting that fin, you're getting that TCP reset, and it just looks like it's erroring out on something like an S9 comparison or SMA comparison.
Yeah, I would be hoping that the last Debian update didn't actually break that, but I guess it's not impossible.
But yeah, sometimes whenever you're dealing with TLS, it's very funny, but some client and server applications hate it when they get too many things. They think it's like weird, and especially if it's really old software that doesn't even have the little memory allocation to even load up that many. So it's quite silly. And then also, I've seen software that actually will trigger on a bad cipher and just drop the connection. So it says, they're still offering this, we're not going to talk to them. That type of thing.
Right, although in this case it seems to be from the other direction, but yes, certainly. Questions?
What's the beep?
Nuclear destruct. Nuclear destruct.
All right.
He's running out of
Switch
film.
to friendly destruction.
Did you
Keep
load
shutting
this up
down
from
'cause
the
it's
same
too hot.
TCP
Oh,
dump?
too hard. Oh, take it out of the
I would
case.
agree.
It's actually the same Wireshark dump that somebody else done.
Take it out of the case then.
Okay, examples. Ping, we did that. Email submission, we did that. ARP spoofing, time did not permit. Sorry.
I got it.
Other questions about anything that I have to talk about?
Question back here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Does Wireshark, does it offer any kind of meta-analysis besides this micro-analysis? Where you can get like traffic by port and by protocol and by IP address?
Not that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean it's not there.
Pension filter? Not really the question, but help with the question.
Well, so, I mean, let's see if I understand the question correctly. What you're asking about is will it do something where it will look, say, at a broad spectrum of traffic?
Yeah, you
not
took
just,
like a 12-hour dump or something.
you know, like not just something between two nodes, which is what I've been focusing on.
How many gigabytes of storage?
I haven't tried to do that yet. I'm not sure that that's really what it's pointed at. I know that there's a company that will provide Wireshark support, which offers some products, some paid products that will do that kind of thing. And there may be other tools for that purpose. I
So
haven't.
not intrinsic to Wireshark.
Not intrinsic to Wireshark that I know of. It's not something that I personally have needed to do anytime recently.
I mean, if you want to see a graphical representation of the network, there's
Well,
tools out there that
the
do
traffic,
that.
just the traffic.
Right, so like I have EtherApe here going through all the wireless stuff right now, and I can see every protocol and every endpoint and stuff like that. But that's wireless, that's different.
What was the name of that?
EtherApe,
Ether 8? Like, yes. It's cute. Yeah.
but I mean, there's a lot of tools like that, but this is, I think Ken's purpose here is that he's got a problem, a business problem, and he needs the tools to solve said problem. He's not trying to wow the boss with a pretty moving chart.
Yeah, I mean, and what I'm really trying to get at is to show you people how you might be able to use these tools to solve problems in the real world.
If you were getting like a lot of errors or something like that.
Well, you know, if you're dealing with a network problem, looking at a packet capture is almost always illuminating. I didn't say always, but nearly always. It's especially almost always illuminating if your problem is related to this system and that system. If it is a two-system problem, and it's a network-related problem, looking at network capture is almost always illuminating in some way. And that goes back to my experience, you know, that goes back 30 years. But I mean, that's different from, I have 1,000 systems, and they're all interacting in some way. And there's a problem going on, and I need to analyze that. That's something else. That doesn't mean that's not real. Doesn't mean it's not a problem you may need to solve. But that's out of scope for tonight.
It could be something you could look at with Wireshark. Recently, I was getting SNMP trap storms. So on the trap receiver system, I just set it to look for port 162. And then I was seeing that I was hitting 55 to 120 packets a second into that system. And I started looking at through the blaster for it. Okay, why are these routers doing this?
Right.
So, even though I'm only accessing Wireshark on one system, I'm looking at all the traffic coming into it to see what's causing its problem.
Sure.
Or a DOS attack or something like that, it would show you.
Right. So, you know, I mean, yeah, I say my intention was, let's look at the simple case, show you how to do that, and then you're going to be able to work up from there. But that's not going to happen until you get started. The idea is you need, you know, get started using these tools, solve a few problems with them, and then you'll be using them again and again. Unless, you know, you're lucky enough that, you know, you never have a problem on your network. But I'm not that good.
I'd like to point out one thing that happened to me last week. I was having problems with I was trying to identify a DNS server on, you know, a network in somebody's company. And I was looking for information. Well, I couldn't find any simple way to, you know, is it a micro sub server? Is it a BND? Is it a router somewhere? And probably got the bright idea, we'll just do TCP dump port 53. And within 5 seconds, I could see enough information about the DNS server to see there was a Microsoft box that probably needed domain control. So Wireshark is great, but even at the simplest level, TCP dump on a port, like your DNS port, can tell you what DNS servers you're using. We were trying to find out to help Ken when we started here. He had a problem with DNS here internally in Graybar. All we had to do is take my laptop, turn off the VPN, and run TCP dump port 53, and we could see what DNS servers had been provided by the DHCP on wireline. So I guess you'd call it baby steps.
But a raw TCP dump is like drinking from the fire hose.
Well, yeah, I'm saying, look at one port, which is, DNS on 53. At least you've got a specific set of information you can stop in a few seconds. You should be able, in this case, I was able to answer the question I had last week in a few seconds once I figured out how to do it.
Are there any other questions about this? Okay. Gary?
Thank you very much, Ken. As always, an
Gary,
excellent.
can I suggest we need an award for the biggest lab setup for the presentation?
Yes, yes, we
Hey,
can.
Ken?
I
just had to bring some of them in today.
All right.
Perfect timing.
I'm speechless.
Well, you just gave a great speech.
Good job. Yeah, great speech, great speech. Excellent. Once again, thank you, Ken. Always a good talk from you. Jumping back to the what's coming up and questions. In October, this meeting date in October has been on the calendar for being the SUSE Expert Days. SUSE Expert Days being a one-day show that they tour around the world, and it was scheduled to be in St. Louis on that day. Just last week I noticed they dropped it off the schedule for the regular users. They're still showing it as on the vendor page, so it's like, you want to be a vendor and go there, you can. And so I haven't got a chance yet to talk to our SUSE people about what's going on. So it may just be a screw up on theirs. Yes, sir.
We still have the SUSE meetings?
No, we suspended SUSE meetings 8 months ago, 9 months ago, something like that.
No, at the end of 17.
And is that long? Yeah, sure. But yeah, it was a lunchtime meeting. It was a great group for a long time, but the number of attendees was just shrinking, and we just decided to shut it down. So, but if anyone would like to help, the idea was if they were going to do it on the same day as our meeting, to try and get SUSE, some of their presenters, to come and do the talk that night in October. So right now I don't know what's going on. If anyone has more contact people for us to talk to at SUSE, or if you'd like to help organize that, talk to me. Pardon me?
I think it's in the middle of September, isn't it?
Yes, it's this day, well, it's the September date for the lug meeting, for this lug meeting.
Which is the day we're coming back from Niagara Falls, so I think we can get that.
Okay, so it's third Thursday in November.
Agent history.
There we go. Very good. Okay, anybody have anything else that needs to be said? Oh, one other thing. Joe B. was saying a few things, and it just reminded me that years ago, Joe and I were working for a company, and we had some, in those days it was network associates, and they had some remote sniffers. And rather than telling our boss we needed airplane tickets to go all over the country and debug stuff, our boss was amazed because we just sent these remote sniffers out. And Joe came up with some really good tricks of figuring out what the hell was wrong in odd parts of the world that we didn't have to go to. So, pardon me?
It was the user.
Yes.
It was a human somewhere, every single time.
Anything else? Otherwise, we'll see you all at the next meeting. Be that, Stan, when's the Slack meeting?
I don't
First
know.
Thursday of the month.
First Thursday of the month. And when's the newbie look?
I don't know.
Fourth Tuesday?
Fourth Tuesday, okay. Second Wednesday is general meeting here. Check the calendar for everything else. So thank you all for coming.